Hello, everybody, and I would like to welcome you to my first town hall meeting. My name is Edward Ford Ball, as you may know, and I am running for State Senate District 12. District 12 consists of 11 counties, everything between Camilla to Americas, all the way over to Fort Gaines, right to the Alabama line. It's a very large district. Basically today, what we want to talk about, we want to just talk about what's going on in Southwest Georgia as far as our healthcare, how we can improve our healthcare, and what needs to be done on a state level. Today, I have with me some people that are on the front line that are RNs, that are respiratory therapists that can really tell us what's going on. What do they see that's needed in the healthcare system? How, as Georgians, we can make this healthcare system better now that it's been put to the test? A test that, we never knew it really existed. So, what we'll do today is give everybody some time on here to talk to me and engage me, as a candidate for Senate, and just tell me things that they need and things that they see that should be done on the state level. And I will bring in my guests now, and I want everybody to give them a silent round of applause while they are in quarantine as well. Well, not these first responders. They're out there in the field. Well, let's welcome our first guest, Miss Tomeka. Hayslip.
Hi, everyone.
Our second guest, Mr. Kyle Young.
Hello.
Yes, Miss Betty Jenkins, Professor Betty Jenkins, and Miss B. Laster, which is D is an RN, Tomeka's RN, and Kyle is a respiratory therapist, one that's highly needed right now with what's going on in the world, especially when it comes to us breathing. I want to get Tomeka out and tell us a little bit about yourself, Tomeka, and what's your first line of duty.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tomeka. I'm actually from Albany, Georgia, born and raised. I know Edward from way back in band. Yeah, we are true Albanians. So, but I'm an RN and I work in this area. And normally my background is critical care. Right now, I do the step down level critical care, and I deal with cardiovascular patients. But right now, the way things are, our roles in terms of what we normally do in different areas of nursing doesn't matter. When you're on the front line, you do wherever they need you to do, wherever they need you to go, whatever type of patient they need you to take care of. Roles don't matter anymore because it's a pandemic. So, you have to just bring all you have to it. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. Kyle, want you to come in and tell us a little bit about what you do, your duties, and everything.
Kyle Young, respiratory therapist, born and raised here in Leesburg, Georgia. Been doing this for about 9 years now. I'm a lead charge therapist at Phoebe Putney. Work every weekend, night shift. Primarily just been running the ERs and ICUs, trying to get them squared away with what they need. And this past weekend, the ER, we saw at least people who had to be intubated, at least 15 people with COVID that they're waiting too long to come in. And we expressed to them they've got to come in when they can't control their fever for 3 days, coughing over 3 days, shortness of breath. People are waiting weeks before they come in, and by this time it's too late.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. Now we're going to have Professor Betty Jenkins on. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Betty Jenkins. I am a assistant professor of nursing at Albany State University, and I control the clinical parts of our duties now. My background is in critical care, And I've been doing this since 1971. So I guess that makes me the baby in the bunch. It's an area of nursing I would not change for anything. I love my life as a nurse, and trying to teach and show young people what's it all about. Even though it's nursing is not for everybody. It takes a really strong person to really be what he wants to be. Sometimes a lot of people wants to be a nurse simply because mom is a nurse, auntie is a nurse. Oh, my best friend is going to be a nurse. I think I can do it too. But nursing is not an easy task. It is really hard. And I wouldn't give it up for nothing. I'm trying to train everybody to be a better nurse than I am. So when I look up and something happened to me, I know that they would take care of me. And so far, I think I've done a good job.
Thank you so much. Definitely. Now let's see what Ms. D has to tell us. Yes, Ms. D, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Dee Laster, and I am a registered nurse as well. I have been nursing since 2001, and I have worked in probably about every single area of nursing there is to work in, except for pediatrics and except for labor and delivery. The absolute last area of nursing that I worked in on the hospital spectrum would be critical care with Tomeka, as well as some orthopedics. I am a travel nurse as well. I have traveled all over the state of Georgia, working as a traveler. Currently, I work in my own business. I decided a couple of years ago to open a day spa and health and wellness facility. It is Eye Candy Body Spa here in Albany, Georgia, almost 2 years ago. And so I see a lot of people from the healthcare side, from the health and wellness side, and also from the post-operative side. I take care of post-operative patients as well, people that get plastic surgery, and then I take care of them post-operatively. And so from that standpoint, I know that I could probably bring a whole lot to the table, a lot of questions that I may have, whether it be from the hospital spectrum as well from outside of the hospital, out away from the bedside, and on the educational side as well, and talking to people from a health and wellness perspective concerning things going on in our community, and just being one of those forerunners as it relates to healthcare that is not in the hospital spectrum at the moment, but I have a vast experience in that area, though. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that. We're glad to have each one and every one of you a part of this, so we can really get to the meat and potatoes of what's going on in Southwest Georgia. My biggest thing is looking from the outside in, is that we know now, to me personally, I feel we can't survive with one hospital system in Southwest Georgia. Anybody want to chime in about that?
Well, Albany is big enough to have more than one hospital. And I found it to be devastating at one time we did have 2 hospitals that was working and functioning. And now to have just that one, that puts too much stress, and it doesn't give you a choice. You don't have a choice because this is it. So we should have a choice in where we go. I understand too that insurance has a lot to do with it, but as it is right now, we only have just the one hospital, and we should have more than one.
Okay, all right, definitely. That's something that concerns me a lot, and that's something that once elected, I would definitely look at that, because I think in America in general, we've now seen a big flaw, and a lot of people have known that it was a flaw, but they've been quiet about it. But now it's been exposed. So now, especially here in Southwest Georgia, I think it's going to be a goal and a set to, have that secondary system. And I can tell you, one of my cohorts and great friends, Miss Joyce Barlow, who's running for state representative, she's a registered nurse as well, and she's been on that wagon for expanding healthcare, for rural Southwest Georgia. And it's something that's going on. It's not just Southwest Georgia. It's something that it seems like the bigger healthcare providers, as well as the pharmaceutical and insurance companies, have squeezed out the little rural hospitals that are much needed. You think about it, you're going 45 miles to find a head. If you're over in Cuthbert or Richland, you got to drive to get health care. You can't get it. You follow, which is part of not you follow, but I'm sorry, but Fort Gaines, which is part of my district, they don't even have a doctor anymore in Fort Gaines. So Southwest Georgia is really suffering when it comes to health care and the things that we need to do to make it better. Is going to be a joint effort. One thing that I can tell you, I had a question, if we see now that we don't have enough respiratory therapists out there. I have a very close friend, and Kyle, this question is for you and anybody else that wants to piggyback on it, but I've had he's up in Emory right now. He's telling me, he said, man, it's not enough of us. We're in that upper age echelon, so he's like, it's getting hard to get more respiratory therapists. And we know one factor to that is debt, and which is getting that degree, in that field, and that's something that I think now we need to change a lot of things when it comes to getting education for for people that want to be in the healthcare field. Kyle, tell me a little bit about, as a respiratory therapist, what do you see that can be made better in your field now that you've seen this demand?
Well, one main thing, I've got therapists who've been doing this for 15, 20 years, and they're like, I want to go back to nursing school because they pay more. Found out the other night that a starting grad with a 2-year degree from a respiratory versus a 2-year nursing degree, there's a $6 difference in starting pay. Nurses make higher. We are a specialty field. I've always wondered why we are paid a little bit lower than them, if not equal to them. A lot of the times, Tomeka can vouch for this, they rely heavily on our expertise in this area. And I just feel like we as respiratory therapists aren't getting any credit, even with this COVID going on. A lot of us are still kind of pushed to the wayside. Nobody really knows who we are. And it was brought to my attention that they did the sidewalk chalk at Phoebe. Not the first one of them said, thank you, respiratory therapists. We love you. We care about y'all. We pray for y'all. Everything, I have nothing against nurses. My mom's a nurse. My mom's been a nurse since 1994. I think Miss Jenkins, you know her, Cricket Young. And but it just seems like everything's focused on nursing and not respiratory. And a lot of people see this and they're like, well, why do I want to keep busting my tail and not get recognition for it when I can just go get my nursing degree and I can move up the chain faster? Respiratory doesn't have really any advancements at all. And the difference between a 2-year degree respiratory and a 4-year degree respiratory is absolutely nothing. You're not going to learn anything different. I've done critical care since day one out of clinic when I got my license and haven't looked back. And there's really people who have their bachelor's degree and they're no smarter, no better than me with my 2-year degree. And we just see a decline in therapists in our area because, one, the pay. We are one of the lowest paying areas in the state, and job advancement is pretty much non-existent at all in our area.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. You wanna are you able to hear yourself on Kyle? I had somebody tell me they weren't able to hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. I want to check on that. Let's see. All right. Now let's bring up Mrs. Laster. Can you tell us a little bit about your perspective of what is the state to you of the healthcare system here in Southwest Georgia?
As a nurse, right now, it really pains me. It grieves me to see my fellow colleagues be put under so much pressure, under so much stress, maybe even short-staffed, and definitely low on equipment. And it really pains me because they're having to work under those conditions. So I'm really bothered by the fact that what normally would happen, and we do realize that we are not under normal circumstances, but what normally would happen if we had an illness or something that's contagious, or a patient or two that may be contagious with something, we would be fully equipped and able to take care of those patients without any problems. We may be nervous as nurses when we take care of a TB patient, or a patient that, like I said, just may have something that may be contagious. But to see so many comments and so many opinions of people across the state, across the world, when I see people say, well, that's what you signed up for, that's what you you went to school for, that really bothers me and pains me, because even though I've been nursing 19 years this year, I can remember school vividly on an LPN level as well as an RN level. And I don't ever remember getting taught about what happens in a pandemic. I don't ever remember getting taught about what happens if you don't have any PPE equipment or any supplies. I don't ever remember getting taught any of that. I don't ever remember getting taught that, the same equipment that you have on when you get to work at 6:45 a.m., that you have to have that same equipment on until the time you get ready to leave in the afternoons. They didn't teach us that. Okay. Yes. So that pains me that my fellow colleagues are put under pressure, as well respiratory therapists as well, because they're my colleagues as well in the healthcare system. It pains me to see that they are being stressed and put under pressure with low numbers as it relates to staffing, and low numbers as it relates to PPE and having enough equipment to be able to see about their patients. Then the stress of having to go home to their families at the end of the day, if they're even able to go home at the end of the day, if not quarantined. So yeah, that's a problem for me. And like I said, I have not worked in the hospital in quite some time, and right about now, I'm extremely nervous about even having to work in the hospital. Right about now, if I was called to come to the hospital right now, I would be nervous out of my head. I would be stressed right about now. So it does bother me to listen to my colleagues when they say that they are stressed and they're scared and they're nervous because there's not enough PPE in place, and PPE is either missing, not in place, or people just, not being considerate as it relates to PPE and being able to take care of the patients that are not only the ones that are infected, but the ones that are not infected that could stand the chance of getting infected.
Right, definitely. And I think that's one of the things that I think moving forward that you'll see legislation for that'll more prepare our healthcare system on that level. And that's something that I want to stay abreast of and stay on top of. Let's see here. We had a little technical difficulties with Tomeka, and she's coming back up. But so let's look at things as far on a legislative level. What laws or things that you've seen that have hindered the healthcare system, as far as your position or anything that you think should be changed? Anyone is welcome to speak up.
I know one thing that I would like to see changed is something that they did with the nursing group is had the compact state license, where they just do the one license and it covers them across multiple states, whereas respiratory therapy still right now is having to pay per state that we go to work in's license. And every year we renew, we have to pay every single state that we've worked in, trying to keep those up to date. And that just is an astronomical amount of money.
Yeah, that does. That sounds like it. Yes, definitely.
That would be very helpful.
License across the states. Okay. And this is something that a question that I have, and I work for an online university, Catholic University, for almost 10 years. And I saw the way the nursing program worked when it was time for when we were trying to do admissions and everything. Can you tell me this? Do you think having at times like this, I know that the board controls how many students a college, university can allow into a nursing program. Do you think it's time for them to expand that and allow more students into that program? And anybody would like to take that question?
I'll take that question. Okay. I think that as far as the standards of practice as it relates to nursing, the standards of practice being lowered, I absolutely do not think that the standards of practice don't need to be lowered. We are seeing nurses right now that have been nursing a long time. Miss BJ been nursing a long time. Tomeka has been nursing a long time. I've been nursing a long time. And the thing is that veteran nurses are getting nervous about the conditions that they are working under now. Therefore, the standard of nursing should not be lowered, I don't think, or is my opinion. I don't think it should be lowered. I think that it should be kept as is, if not raised to a higher standard. I know that there are a lot of schools, a lot of colleges that are making the SAT and the ACT exempt to get in school, and I think that may be good for certain professions. But I do feel like, as it relates to the nursing profession, I think that the standard, the practice standards need to be kept at a certain standard. They need to be kept there, simply because we are already under a lot of pressure, and we need to know that the people that are turning out of school right now, new grads out of college, out of school right now, as it relates to nurses, we need to know that they are able and they are equipped educationally to be able to take care of patients whenever they get to the hospital. We don't need to be lenient as it relates to new nurses not knowing enough. And you can never know enough in nursing. I will say that I've been nursing a long time. However, to lower the standard, absolutely not. I would definitely not be a fan of a lower standard as it relates to the requirements to get into nursing school or any of the prerequisites that are already in place. I don't think that those standards need to be lowered, because a lot is on the shoulders of a nurse, and we need to know that if you're taking care of our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents, that you know what you're doing, and we don't want to just turn people out of school and do a drive-through schooling, just to make sure that we got enough nurses on the floor, because you can get them on the floor, but they still got to know what they're doing when they get there. And Tomeka can also vouch for this too. Even at Phoebe, when new nurses come on the floor, they are precepted for weeks upon weeks upon weeks, even though they hold a license. They are with a veteran nurse, and they are shadowing a veteran nurse for weeks on end before they are let go. And even still then, even if they don't feel comfortable, they can still be precepted to some degree at Phoebe. So I don't think that is something that standard doesn't need to be lowered. It needs to be held to a higher standard, so that we know that these nurses are well equipped educationally to take care of patients.
Thank you. That was very well said. Tomeka, do you want to piggyback off of that?
Keeps going.
Can you hear me?
I agree with her. The standards should stay the same. I don't think you need to lower the standards in order to get nurses accepted into the program. You only have one life, and you lower the standards just to get someone into the program. I mean, it's like I don't want someone taking care of me that was put in place just to make sure that we had enough nurses.
Right.
The thing with nursing, we will always have a shortage of nursing. We're gonna always have it. There are some of us are cut out to be nurses, and there are some of us are not. There are some of us have gone through a lot, have found out once they got into the program and start functioning as a nurse, have license to practice as a nurse, and they realize this is not for me. Nursing is not for everybody. And we can't lower the standards trying to make us have that particular quarter. It just won't, it won't work. You either have it in you. I cannot make you something that you're not.
That's right.
Okay, definitely. And speaking of that, one of the things that I plan on doing as far as education, I have a big thing to push that we have to bring back those core fundamental programs. So I want to bring vocational education back into the middle and high school level. So now you can go in and you can get more, you can, and is what Professor Jenkins is saying is that now these kids, middle and high school, can start taking little introductories into these programs like nursing or maybe respiratory therapy or different things in the healthcare field to know actually to save, when it comes to college time, to save these professors and these students a lot of hard-earned time and money, because they figure out they ain't cut out for it. It's something that they really thought they wanted to do, but they didn't want to do. So having that and bringing that back into the school system is powerful to me, and I feel that, because to move away for a little bit from the healthcare, but the reason why I want to do that is because just teaching strictly to the test, that has changed. Millennials now don't want all the debt. Generation Z, millennials, whichever ones they want to use. But the kids that's coming along now, they don't want $70,000 in student loans. So now it's time for us to figure out ways here in Georgia, because Georgia is what I want to represent, how we can make it better for these young people to get into these professions, to get in and fill these respiratory therapist positions, fill these nursing positions, and last with longevity. Those are the things that we as state legislators have to figure out to make the jobs easier for you all.
Can I say something?
Okay.
Can I say something for a moment?
Sure, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Because I've been having technical difficulties.
Yes, you can hear you.
So I have trained a lot of new nurses, okay? And one of the biggest things about being here in Albany and in Southwest Georgia, because this is the only hospital I work for, these new nurses, they're coming in and they want their entry level salary to be a substantial amount. I think here in Georgia, when I looked at the numbers, I think entry level they may make maybe $50,000, and I know to some people they may think that that's a whole lot. But when you're dealing with these nurses coming into this shortage,
Oh, definitely.
I don't think that they're looking at the fact. And they sit with our patients to keep them from falling. So most of the times, all this stuff falls on that one particular nurse. So not only are you doing your job, but you're also doing the CNA's job as well, because you don't have them there. So you're compiling all that work. So, but I'm still getting that same entry level pay. So what they tend to do is they either, they go to other areas, which is outside of your district, that you're speaking of, and they make more money on an entry level. You spoke about how they don't want student loans. They also want to get compensated, out the gate, whereas we had to kind of wait, for hours to increase. But they're coming out of school and they're saying, hey, how much you offering? I mean, I'm telling you, I train them. So, even when they're students, I'm there with them. So I hear them and they're like, hey, well, up at this hospital up north, they're paying this. You get what I'm saying? So that kind of needs to change. And I think a lot of times people look at, well, this area, in Albany or what have you, or Valdosta, well, the cost of living isn't high, but you're not in there to see how much they work short from other areas. You get what I'm saying? Like, if we don't have a safety sitter, they take our CNA and put in that room. You get what I'm saying? To keep that patient safe. So therefore the nurse is working and doing 2 jobs. So it's wearing that person out. So you're burning them out early. They're staying probably a year because of that. They feel like they're not getting compensated to do all this extra work. So, that mindset needs to change. And I think we talked about that the other day when we talked about shortage. I said it's the Southern mindset. That's why the other areas are flourishing. And, we have 80,000 nurses here in Georgia, approximately, and we're still short. And those are a lot of nurses for us to still be short. And for us to be the 6th, Georgia's like the 6th out of the U.S. that, has the biggest shortage.
Oh, wow.
Yes, look at it.
So how many nurses are they saying that we actually truly need?
Well, because of the fact that we have sicker people in Georgia, because of our lifestyles. You know what I'm saying? So that plays a factor too in the reason why we need more nurses. Because you may go like out to California where they eat healthier and people aren't as sick. But yet and still they're making way more money than us. And those nurses out there aren't going to take the nurse to patient ratios that we take. Sometimes we down here in South Georgia, we go 6, 7. I've talked to nursing friends and be like, I took 8 patients, 8 to 1,
Yeah.
Can you repeat that, Tomeka? You went out for a second.
I said that the nurse to patient ratio out west, is not like it is in the South. They're not going to take more than 3 to 4 patients, and they're going to get compensated well just to do that. Whereas down here, our nurses are going to take, in a lot of areas, up to 7, 8 patients to that one particular nurse because of the shortage. Wow. And work without no CNA. So, they look at the area and say, well, it's the cost of living is low, but look at all the work that you're putting on that one individual. So you're going to keep losing people. People are going to move out of Georgia.
Yeah, that itself is amazing. And I have a special guest coming on, and his name is Will Greer. He's a CPA, but he's very involved. He's controversial. He gets on people, but he has a love for his city. It kind of reminds me of me. I gave up, being in the film business and other things. I didn't really give it up, but I stepped away from that to come back home because I felt that there was a need for somebody that really wanted to take 229, put it on their backs, and go to that Gold Dome and say, what's in it for 229? Yeah, Atlanta want that, Atlanta want this, but what's in it for Southwest Georgia? And that's the kind of attitude I got. And so I want to bring on Mr. Gear, because what he's been talking about and just what you're saying, he posted a picture about a few days ago of a plane full of people from Georgia, nurses that are going to New York and to go work. So Mr. Gear, can you give us some information of what are your findings and some of the shortcomings that you think that we need?
Yeah, make sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. Thank you for asking me to come on here. And I really appreciate it. I want to applaud everybody that's spoken so far. The last person that was speaking, I think I got excited about. That was you, Tomeka. I don't know if you can hear me very well, but you made some points that are invaluable there. Those are some of the issues that plague Southwest Georgia and Phoebe. And those are some of the things that I believe can be remedied in this area. It goes back to some of the other comments that where we need to have competition. We need another hospital in this area. We need to have those nurses paid more. Phoebe's not having a problem making money in this area, and that money should be paid to some of these nurses to get them into this area. One of the things that was brought up was the lack or the precepting that was taking place, and then also the education that was required. And I think you said it sometime in there when you were talking about the fact that nobody wants to come out with that kind of debt to come into this market. Well, you're talking about services that people really need in communities. So why not have programs set up that it's just like Albany Area Primary Healthcare. I don't know their exact program, but if you'll go to work for them for a while, they'll pay off your student debt. Why isn't Phoebe doing something like that? Why aren't there programs throughout the state where the governor is supporting programs like that? And the same thing that I'm hearing these nurses and this respiratory therapist talk about are the same things that I'm interested in. I often get attacked for people believing that I'm actually attacking the people that are in the rank and file that are doing the work. I'm actually there to support you and the things that you feel like you need. I'm trying to give you that voice. There are many people that reach out to me and say, hey, can you post this up? Can you do this? Because of that, I can't share their names because they risk losing their job. But what I'm hearing from everybody in this group is exactly the things that can remedy a lot of the problems that are in Southwest Georgia. So I'll stop there for a second and let you ask me some more questions before I continue.
Oh, well, definitely. I'm glad to have you on. I'm glad you were able to tell a lot of people about your passion and why you stay on top of the big business part of it. Because as they say, always follow the money. We're put in situations sometimes because it's about the money. And the money is not always going to the people, as we see, but it's always going to the top. So, some of the things that we need to address is exposing that. And I don't have a problem with doing that. And, so I was speaking with Ms. Laster earlier this morning, and the things that I wanted to basically talk about, us doing is we have to get in Southwest Georgia, we need to mobilize. And me and Tomeka were talking about this as well. We need to mobilize. So my goal is every sect of this population, I want to educate you. I want to mobilize you. I don't want your vote. I don't want you to give me your vote and say, oh man, I hope he goes up there and I hope he does. He's a good guy. Can he go up there and just do what I want him to do? What you want me to do? So the reason why I'm bringing this group together is because I want to mobilize us to where we can say, okay, these are the healthcare professionals. What is needed to make our system the best system in the United States that make everybody else want to come to Georgia and find out what we're doing so well? This is what we have to do. We have to come together and we have to make, as we the people, have to make the legislation that we want to pass, that we want to make our lives better. Same way with small business, same way with law enforcement. I am your statesman. I'm not just the guy to go up there and do what I want to do. I'm going to state the facts of the citizens of Southwest Georgia.
Well, let me say something to address that. The four people that I've heard speak are very astute and very qualified people at what they're doing. And what has happened over time is that people that are elected into office, whether in Senate or what have you, in the legislature, are not listening to the voices of the people that are right in front of you. They're not listening to Kyle. They're not listening to Betty, Tomeka, or Dee. They are listening to people that have money, that have control. They're listening to the people that have control of the lobbyists that can come get in your ear. And the people you need to be listening to are sitting right here on this telecast with you. And that's whose voices need to be heard.
I second it definitely. And that's what I'm about. I'm about listening to the voices of the people, because that's who I want to send me there. I want their voices to be my voice. I want their voice to be my voice. You know, I am ready to lead. I'm ready to move Southwest Georgia in a whole nother level. Anything anybody else has on anything that we want to see as far as state level for the nursing field? We had Kyle earlier.
You
Hey,
know, the
I
thing that I would love to see is mentoring high school students that want to become a nurse. Now, the person that's going to mentor the student to encourage them and to motivate them to become a nurse, she don't need a platter that's overrun with everything else without giving her the chance to teach and to show these students what they can do. There's a lot of students, you know, they teach them to become CNAs, and they be a CNA until death do us part. They don't have to stay in that predicament when you can have someone that can teach them, that can make, to help make their lives so much better. Because, you know, that is something we need. Everybody can't be a nurse, like I said. And then to listen to them and to show them and to, like, okay, make them, you know, children want you to look them in the eye. Don't belittle them. Help them along the way. And then the other thing too, where you was talking about getting out of school and having debt. I guess I was just blessed. I was an LPN first, and then I went back to school and got my BSN. All I had to do when I was working for Hospital Corporation of America was just to make a C. I was not a C student. I was an AB student, and I worked full time. They paid me to go to school. When I graduated with my BSN, I had no debt. And then I went back to school again and got my master's. And I used the forgiveness loan. You work in the state for X amount of years. I mean, if they sent you to school for 2 years, you had to work in the state for that years. So when I graduated, I owed nobody but God to help me through it all. And then, you know, it bothers me to see people talking about being in debt. I mean, and then the folks that you owe the money to, they're gonna drive you nuts. You can't even work and sleep if somebody is bugging you about paying them. And you got car payments, you got half the place to stay, you got to have food on the table. God forbid if you got a few children, and then you're worried about that debt. No, 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 no. Life is better than that. And so what I see now is young people graduating from, millennials graduating from school, and they come out and they have a 2-year degree. Some of them go back and get that BSN. You know, the standard is higher than that.
Definitely.
And it's something that you have to really want. I mean, you know, it's like that is, if I had to live my life over, I would not change it. I would still be a nurse. And like I do now, I work part-time. I don't work full-time, but I enjoy being with my students during the semester. And honest to God, I can see the light come on when I'm explaining things to them and showing them children cannot learn in a hostile environment. They got to they don't want you to sometimes a child want to ask you a question, and they won't ask you a question because they are afraid to ask a question. Nobody knows it all. But it's one profession I do love, and that's nursing. I love myself some nursing.
Definitely. I'm glad to hear it, and that's something that we need to hear. People need to hear it. You know, Tomeka, you were going to chime in on something.
Yeah. Everything she's saying is absolutely the truth. She will ride with you to the ends of the earth. And that's what she's saying is really generally true. But another thing is that, do you know how bad it hurts? And I think, you know, D and Miss BJ and Kyle can all attest to this. When you're training these people that's coming in out of school, and I mean, like, you're training them, and then they actually turn out to be, for cardiovascular too, that's not easy. And they actually turn out to be really good at it, in a short period of time. It's we're getting some really smart students that's able to put this stuff together, but then they don't stay. They may stay a year or a year and a half and they're gone. And it's to the point where, it hurts. It hurts that you put all that effort into them, and then they're just taking what you've given them and they're going to give it to another hospital. Sometimes you have to listen to what they're saying that they need right here and give it to them. Meet them halfway, because in the end, you're going to lose money with training. Okay, that's a lot of money to train a nurse when they're at orientation for those 12 weeks. You're going, it really is. And
We lost it to me. Okay.
Can you hear me? They're going to take and give it to a whole nother organization, and I'm proud of every last one of them, for doing well and going on with their lives. But what I'm saying is that it gets to the point where when a new one comes through the door, you're like, oh, like, I'm going to train this one up, but I'm not sure if they're going to stay, because that's the pattern. And then on top of that, me and Kyle was talking at work, and I never knew, that the RTs, until this pandemic, was looked at like that, because I've always just tried to respect everybody. So, I've always looked at the RTs, on the same level as the nurses. So I never even knew until this pandemic and talking to RTs after what I was seeing online that they were being treated that way. And I see it all over my timeline from RTs, some everywhere, in those different groups and stuff. And so it's just crazy to me that an area of healthcare that you need, which is airway, that people are so ignorant that they don't even know that the RTs actually manage the airway. So again, this is Southwest Georgia mindset. It has to change. It has to start somewhere.
Definitely. D, you have something you want to spin?
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off of what Tomeka was saying concerning training graduate nurses, or even nurses that never worked for a particular hospital, and then they come to work for hospitals. I have precepted quite a few people too. And it's my opinion that and even in speaking to them, the reason why a lot of young nurses or new nurses do that is because they don't feel respected, they don't feel valued, probably for the same exact reason that RTs don't. And I don't know if Kyle can attest to that, but when people don't feel like they are valued, or they don't feel like their voice matters, then even before they leave a job, they are already looking for another job somewhere else. So when new nurses or nurses that come to a new facility and are precepted and start working, if they feel appreciated, or if their voice feels valued, then they tend to stick around. I can speak firsthand on that. I have been a travel nurse for a very long time. Like I said, I've worked in several different hospital systems all over the state of Georgia. And it's just like with travel nursing or agency nursing, people have gotten away from what the real reason agency nurses or travel nurses are even evolved. Number one, they're evolved just so they could come in and help with a shortage, or help a hospital system or a healthcare system that needs the assistance because they have a shortage there. However, over the course of years, and I know that a lot of nurses that are probably listening right now can attest to this, but over the years, what has happened is that agency nurses or travel nurses have come into hospital systems and they are not respected as much. They are not valued as much. It's been said that since they make more money than the nurse that is on staff there, that they get thrown to the wolves a whole lot, and they tend to leave a whole lot faster. When in actuality, what's really supposed to happen in the evolution of the travel nurse or a nurse that is there on contract, it is that, in my opinion, it is that hospital systems or the healthcare systems' responsibility to try their absolute best to keep that nurse or those nurses on board, so that they can potentially be there full time and become a full-time staffer because they love it so much, because they feel valued. and so that they can pull that nurse away from another healthcare system so that they can be a vital asset to their hospital. However, it doesn't work that way a lot of times. And I also say this too, as it relates to nurses that are not being valued, or nurses that get thrown to the wolves, or nurses that have a higher nurse-patient ratio when it comes down to it. I mean, there have been one time I even had in my nursing career, I've had 8-9 patients at one time, at one point on a shift. And so I feel like what needs to happen is, as it relates to you, Mr. Ball, what needs to happen is that those nurses, or nurses in general, that do have a voice that people tend not to value as much, those nurses need to write those questions down for you. They need to come up with those comments for you so that you can take those comments back to Atlanta, to wherever, and so that our voice can be heard. Because there are a lot of nurses, they have so much that they want to say. I mean, we just saw a nurse go viral and go on national news last week because of her voice being heard, out of her upset, with her quitting her job because of her healthcare condition. Well, a lot of people are shunning her, but there are also a lot of people that are rooting her on, and they're looking at her as a hero just because she spoke up. And so there are a lot of nurses that are very vocal. I'm definitely one of those nurses that are very vocal. And if we had somebody to take our questions to Atlanta, to Washington, to the White House, or wherever, I promise you, there are a lot of nurses that have a lot to say that you can definitely get that input from, so that you can take that back. We can come up with those questions or those opinions so that you can hear our voices, because there are a lot of us that are speaking loud and clear, but there are some healthcare systems that are just absolutely not valuing us, and they are not listening. And honestly, I will be honest, that is some of the reason why I came out of the hospital sector as much. I still do travel nursing, but I came out of the hospital sector as much, especially on a much more permanent basis, and opened my own business as far as day spa and post-operative care in my own business. That is a lot of the reason why, So if we had a voice and we could be heard, and we're vocal, and we are, and our voice is valued, then I promise you, a lot of this, I feel like a lot of this stuff could stop if we had somebody to help us take it to the higher ups and get our opinions heard.
That's what it's about. Definitely. And that's what we're going to do. We ain't going to talk about it. We're going to be about it. We're going to change the way this system is run in Southwest Georgia, in Albany, Georgia, and in Georgia as a whole. Now, I want to bring Kyle back to kind of give us a little bit about what some of the things y'all been talking about.
Patient workload. I mean, I know we're in a shortage and we don't have a choice right now. My first job, 26 patients were mine. And I know the nurses have a 1-to-2 ratio, sometimes 1-to-6, 1-to-7. But 20 ventilators with one person, to me, is not safe. Because if I'm coding one patient in another room, who's there to help me with the rest of the people who are coding, or if something else needs to be solved? We have, at our hospital right now, 3 ICUs. One therapist is dedicated to each ICU at all times. However, if we don't have the extra hands to help, we don't have somebody who can help out if somebody goes south quick, and then you have somebody across the unit that's going south quick. We call the charge in, which is either myself or some other people that come in, and the charge nurses are responsible for all their patients in that unit, even if they're theirs or not. I'm responsible, as well as the rest of the charges are responsible for every patient in that hospital. We try to give them as much possible time as we can. We, unfortunately, we get people in nursing and respiratory. They come in, they get their 6 months experience, they jump ship. Like, I got my 6 months, that's all that was required. I can go travel, I can move to Atlanta or, out of state and make more money. I'm not moving anywhere. I'm staying where I'm at. I love my job. I come from a family of medical. My mom's a nurse. My great grandfather, before he passed away, was one of the founding Dougherty County EMS paramedics. I mean, he's trained over half of Dougherty County EMT paramedics. And my grandmother was an EMT. My great aunt and uncle both were paramedics, EMTs. Healthcare has just been bred into me, and I'm a hometown boy, so I'm not leaving anywhere. Just, you can see how when Palmyra closed, how deflated everybody's mentality got with having one healthcare system down here. And I'm all for Lee County building. I believe competition is good. It's going to help actually make us better, make us change things, and make us compete and offer services that bigger cities can do themselves. And why travel, 3 hours away to Atlanta when we can offer you the same stuff down here at the same costs, and you don't have to leave your home. You can be here and take care of yourself locally versus having to spend time away from your family.
Definitely. And what you're saying means so much. And, that's one of the great things. I'm a trumpeter for Southwest Georgia, and I'm a trumpeter. But one, I heard this long time ago, is that Albany is like a training ground for every industry. I'm talking from television to from news anchors to police to just about any job in general. We got, as a community, we got to figure out a way to get out of that state of Albany just being a training ground and everything. It's things that our officials here need to do to make this area more attractive and make people want to stay. It's things that the corporations need to do in general to make people want to stay. Like we had a young man had a comment a minute ago, and he said, let me bring it back up on the screen. And he's like, the cost of living might be lower in Albany, but the medical bills are just as high as anywhere else. And it's like that in a lot of industries. We're still paying the same price that they pay in Atlanta, but the money is not like that. And going off of that, you want to answer that, Mr. Greer?
Well, yeah, I can answer that specific question right there. I have a home in two places, north of Atlanta and also down in Albany. And I can tell you, while the cost of housing might be a little bit lower, the cost of living in and of itself is not. The logistics of getting products in and out of Albany causes the products to actually cost more. One of the things that I want to touch on as well is when you talk about the intellectual resource that is in Albany, so many things are leaving, whether it's the police forces or anything there. It is a true training ground. And to hear these people, all of you that are up here talking, say the same things that I have been feeling, it's kind of rewarding in a sense to have others that realize what is taking place there. And when I express my angst or my frustration with what I see, it's more about the administration of these hospitals, because what I've seen with Phoebe, for instance, is that there's capitalization on more of the profit-making side of things rather than the caregiving side. My mother worked at Phoebe in the 80s, and it was a totally different hospital. It truly was a hospital that cared about the community. It truly was a hospital that took care of the community. And then there was Palmyra as well. And having that coexistence, that symbiotic relationship, that somewhat of a competitive nature where people could go if they weren't happy in one situation, it provided an environment for people to flourish. When that was taken away, and even before that, as medical practices were purchased and bought out, that started to dissipate. A lot of things started to change in Albany. And it even affected the industry that was in Albany as it started to leave because of the high cost of healthcare that we were experiencing here. So all I can say is something has to change in Southwest Georgia and moreover in Albany, Georgia, in order to make this a better environment. Phoebe needs to stop focusing on paying doctors a really high fee, because the people that are doing most of the care are the nurses, the respiratory therapists, and a whole plethora of other people that are not staying in Albany, Georgia, and providing. Back when I was really hitting the Phoebe factoid matters really, really hard, you could see on the Department of Community website, they were showing that there were 225 nurses short. That's 225 nurses. Now, in relation to what? It was the highest vacancy rate in the state. But they will tell you that there's a vacancy rate everywhere. Sure, there's always going to be a vacancy rate, but nothing was as high as the almost 25% that Phoebe was experiencing. So there was something there. You can't blame it on the location. there are very intelligent people that have made the choices. They even still live in Albany, some, and have become travel nurses because they're disenchanted with Phoebe or they got onto the blacklist. Those things shouldn't happen anymore. Those are the things that have to change, and we need to recognize what will make Southwest Georgia flourish, not just what will be capitalized on at Phoebe. So that's what I focus on, and I think that if the voices of the people that are here, other than mine, continue to speak out, and that's what we need. That's really what we need. We need your voices to be heard. That will change the dynamics that are currently in Southwest Georgia and Albany. But if those voices aren't heard, nothing's going to change, and it's only going to get worse. I'll leave it at that for a moment.
Well, thank you all. We've been on an hour now, and y'all gave some great information. We've created a great group to build some relationships with. I want y'all to stay in my head, stay on top of me, telling me about new ideas, telling me things where we need to go, as far as the city, as far as a region, as far as a state. This means a lot to me. This means a lot. I want to make Southwest Georgia, not the name we're always getting on TV, is never a good name, but we need to turn it around and say, hey, we going down to Southwest Georgia. I've enjoyed. It's some tourism going. There's some great things going on. We want to change that whole energy and that atmosphere that Southwest Georgia has been getting, because it hasn't been great as of lately over the last couple of years. So we need to put all our dynamic energy together. We need to push forward, and we need to say we are not sitting down anymore. We are going to change our daily way of life. And we can all do it as a group together and positive. We might not always agree with each other, but it's all in love. As long as we're doing it all in love, we're going to do much better than what we've been doing. And I want to thank each and every one of you today for coming on with me. I want to thank the crowds that came on and visited this live town hall. Our next town hall that we'll be bringing up will be on the criminal justice system and criminal justice reform in Southwest Georgia, as well as the state of Georgia. I want to thank each and every one again, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good day.